Allison and James.
And together, we've been living in and restoring our 1968 Airstream Overlander for the past year and a half.
The decision to adopt a tiny home lifestyle was right for us for many reasons. The most obvious being that it was attainable and affordable. We love living and adventuring here in BC, but the cost of living is really expensive.
In 2020, we found ourselves searching for a new place to live and trying to work out what the next stage in life would look like for us. We wanted the empowerment and the autonomy of having our own space, but weren't quite ready to commit to taking on a massive mortgage to be able to afford to buy property here in BC.
We spend a considerable amount of time traveling and adventuring outdoors, and we didn't want to land in a situation where we were working full time to pay for an apartment or a space that we are hardly ever in.
And because we already have a fairly nomadic lifestyle, we really were attracted to the idea of having a home which we could take with us on whatever our adventures may turn into. Our van life days also taught us that we really wanted to avoid having an engine attached to our living space.
We experienced quite a few breakdowns, and so when deciding what to purchase for our tiny home on wheels, we ruled out van options as well as schoolie conversions.
Prior to taking on the Airstream project, we had actually lived in 2 separate trailers, which really helped us to develop an idea of what we did and didn't want in the space. We lived in a really small truck bed trailer, and we lived in a larger 30-foot trailer for a year as well. These experiences really helped to shape our design process when it came to laying out and then subsequently building the Airstream.
We wanted the space to feel very bright and open, and we also wanted to maximize the storage as much as possible so that the space didn't feel cluttered. So this is the main living space in our Airstream. Essentially, when we're not sleeping or cooking, we're hanging out in this area, lounging or eating or working. This is our main office space. The seating area is super functional, so it houses our fresh water tank, and then on top of that we built all of these deep drawers to store like our computer gear and all of our office supplies. And then there's some shelves and cubbies as well. Underneath the cubic mini wood stove, we've got a storage box for wood, as well as our sewing machine. It's a super functional space, mostly because of this swivel table. So this swivels in all directions and allows you to work from any place in the seating area. It's adjustable height-wise. We spent a lot of time sitting here. We haven't quite finished the top of the table yet, so that's a project on the to-do list, as well as the upholstery. So right now we just have some blankets laid on, but we really wanted this space to feel open and inviting. When we first built the seating area, we had used the original aluminum frame, and we found that was just too small, and so we rebuilt it again and made it a lot larger. And it's just such a nice place to lounge, especially in the winter time. We like to cozy up by our fireplace and just do a lot of living in this space.
The stove that we installed is a Cubic Mini. It's the Cub size, and we're really happy with it. The Cub stove is very efficient. Over the winter, we burnt about a cubic foot of wood a day, just depended on how many hours that we ran it for. Being such a small combustion stove, we can't really rely on it as our primary source of heat, because it really just needs constant stoking every 30 minutes or so. We actually rely on a 110 volt baseboard heater, which keeps the ambient temperature above 0 so that none of our pipes freeze in the winter. It's really cozy and enjoyable. It dries out the trailer really, really well in the winter.
So the kitchen is the most important part of a home for us. I studied food and nutrition at university, and James loves to cook. So when we were designing this space, we were really thoughtful about it. Essentially, we knew we wanted a lot of counter space. This design is perfect because there's plenty of area to prep, cook, and plate. We actually find it more functional than some of the larger kitchens that we've cooked in because everything is within an arm's reach, which we really love. We're pretty obsessed with our countertops, mostly because James and I built them from scratch. We milled 15 feet of gorgeous countertops from a single slab of walnut. It took us a long time, definitely a labor of love, but we're so happy with how they turned out. We think they're a really beautiful accent in the space. We have a granite composite sink. It's really deep. We don't miss having a dishwasher because the faucet that we installed in here is super powerful. Just like blast food away. It's amazing. We'll link to that in the description below because it's fantastic. We do not miss having a dishwasher with this faucet. We also have a electric household f.i.r.e. fridge. So it's obviously a smaller size than most household fridges, but we found it's perfect for us. It runs on 110 volts and it doesn't have a freezer. We do miss having some frozen fruit and things like that in the summertime, but other than that, we're pretty happy with our choice on it. We have a 3-burner cooktop. This is just a standard size RV propane stove. It's got a little oven. We're really happy with this Dometic stove as well. Got some over-counter lighting, which puts off plenty of light. We actually thought we were gonna have more sconces in here, but once we installed this and turned it on, we realized we didn't need any more lights. So that was awesome because lighting can be pretty expensive. We also have tons of storage in this space, so really deep cupboards that hide all of our things. We didn't want to have the space feel cluttered. We really wanted it to be minimal. So we didn't want too many things on the countertops or on shelves. We wanted everything to be stored in these deep cupboards. When we designed the space, we really thought about the things that we use daily when we're cooking, and so each drawer was specifically designed for the things that are in it. So we've got our cups and dishware, cutlery, as well as our cooking utensils. We also have this really great cupboard that hides our garbage and compost and slides out. We utilize the space on the floor for additional storage, so we store our root vegetables and things like that down there where it's nice and cold. And then we put in some additional storage where the wheel wells are by designing these sliding cubby doors, which we also made out of walnut.
All of our cabinetry is made out of 3/4 inch plywood. We did consider going for prefabbed cabinet, but in the end we decided to build everything ourselves. We had to make individual boxes that sat around the wheel wells and then attach them all together to secure them into a single unit in order to give the cabinet the most rigidity and strength that we could for the movement within the trailer. They have catches and 22-inch slides. We also made the handles out of leather. We really like them. I think they ended up looking great.
So our kitchen kind of extends into our back bed area via this countertop space here. So if we're cooking a big meal, we might use it for prep space. But other than that, we usually try to keep it pretty clean. Most of our stuff is stored in the deep drawers here. So we built 6 drawers that James and I basically share for socks, underwear, our clothes, as well as some of our pantry goods for the kitchen. We have a standard double-size bed. Basically, we had this bed when we lived in a normal apartment, and we designed the space around this mattress. There is ample storage back here, so it's about 6 feet by 7 feet, all storage underneath the bed. We built custom bedside tables as well. The countertops are made with the same walnut as the countertops in the kitchen, and then we utilize the space underneath to create some hidden storage. So we store things like towels and sheets and our toiletries and things like that, and they're totally out of sight. Underneath the bed space, there is room for 4 Home Depot totes. So we store things in those seasonally. For example, summer, we'll pack our winter clothes away in the totes, and it's just creates some extra storage for us. But we also created a long storage area for things like skis and our snowboards and our instruments as well. Believe it or not, we even have a full beer brew kit hidden in our closet. Our closet is a standard size. It's 4 feet. It's more space than we need. We've really downsized since adopting this lifestyle, so we're finding that we've really created more than enough storage space for 2 of us to live in here comfortably. Finally, we have our wet bath area. So it's called a wet bath because essentially when you shower, everything in here can get wet. There's not actually a bath. It's a super functional space. We're really excited about it because we only finished it a couple weeks ago, even though we've been living in here for the last 12 months. Prior to this being finished, we were actually showering outdoors. Now we get to shower inside, and it's really, really lovely. For the build, we ended up using fiberglass. We love the look of tiles, but they're really heavy. And so for a home that is on wheels and is moving around, we decided to go with fiberglass because it's more lightweight and super durable. We had to learn how to work with that material, which was new for us, but we're really happy with how it turned out. Everything in here was constructed with plywood first, and then we laid the fiberglass over the plywood. Essentially, it made a mold, and then once we were done with the fiberglass process, we were able to paint it so that it looked like everything else in here. We did a 3-part series about that on our channel, so you can check out the step-by-step process there. Would recommend to other people who are building lightweight bathrooms in their tiny spaces. We built a custom shower grate out of maple, and we have a Nature's Head composting toilet in here as well. The nice thing about having the composting toilet is you can take it in and out of the bathroom, so you can shower with the toilet in here, which is what makes it a wet bath, but you also have the option to take the composting toilet out and shower in here without it.
So there are 2 parts of each of the water system as well as the electrical system. We have a water tank which is housed under the seating area at the front, so if we were off-grid we could fill that with water. It then has a 12-volt pump which can pump the water all the way around through to our sink faucet, as well as the hot water heater that then feeds back to the faucet for the sink, as well as the shower head. Then we also have the water hookup which comes through the rear of the trailer and just provides pressurized water straight to this side of the system. There are check valves in place so that the water can't backflow through the system. So once the water comes out of the faucet, it then comes through our grey water system, which runs straight down into the subfloor of the trailer and then is run internally through the frame and out the back. The electrical system also starts down the back here where our 110 hookup is located. It comes into the trailer, goes into a breaker box, and we have 2 15 amp circuits which run parallel on either side of the trailer to bring electricity through to all of our electrical outlets. We have 2 12-volt AGM batteries that provide 12-volt power for our sconces, as well as the water pump. The trailer does have the capacity to go off-grid. We did build the systems with the intention of doing that at some point, but for now, we're pretty content here being plugged in.
We feel very fortunate to live where we are. Currently, we are renting a slice of land on a forested private property here on Vancouver Island. Our rent is month to month and includes water and an electrical hookup. The landowners have poured a lot of love into this property and have a gorgeous garden space that they share. James and I contributed 4 raised beds, and we love that we have an opportunity to grow fresh food year-round.
The property borders a river and a provincial park, so we have lots of wild neighbours and feel remote, but we're really only a 10-15 minute drive from civilization. We're nestled here in the woods and are shaded from the sun during the hot summers, and luckily the winters here are also very mild, so we can live in relative comfort all year round in our aluminum home.
Overall, we find the space to be very open, spacious, functional, and comfortable, so we're really happy with how everything turned out. Especially being first-time home builders, we, I guess, kind of impressed ourselves. This isn't our forever home, but it certainly suits our current lifestyle. James and I are also minimalists, so living in this tiny space feels more or less natural for us. That's not to say that it doesn't come with its challenges, but overall, we're really happy living this way. Struggles of living in a tiny space? I don't know, do you want to go first?
The space works really well whenever we're doing the same activity, but if we're trying to do 2 different activities, then there can be a little bit of competition over square footage. I would say one of the biggest struggles that I have is when I'm working night shifts and I have to sleep during the day. The trailer has a tendency to bounce and shift ever so slightly even though it's on stabilizing jacks, and that sometimes will wake me up during the day.
Another challenge would be if one of us is working. If one of us is using the living area as an office space, it's really hard if the other one is coming in and out of the space or making a lot of noise, and so we really have to adjust our own schedules around each other's schedules so that we can give each other the space we both need in order to sleep or work. Another huge challenge has obviously been living in the space while we're renovating it. So we tried our best to get as much done before we had to move into this space, but there came a certain point where we couldn't pay double rent anymore and we just had to move in and kind of deal with it. Now, as we're projecting, the entire space turns into the project and it can feel a little overwhelming at times.
Building the Airstream project has really helped us to think about the amount of materials that go into building a conventional dwelling. We like to think of the Airstream as being about half upcycled materials, with the aluminum body and the chassis comprising of about 50% of the space, and then the interior build being the other 50%. And we really only used about 8 or 9 sheets of plywood and half a dozen 2x4s, which I think most people would probably pick up in a single load on a trailer or throw it in the back of their truck, which I think is really good compared to the amount of materials that go into conventional dwellings. If it wasn't for the time constraints, we probably could have used more reclaimed materials or have been more efficient and effective in their usage. But you live, you learn, and maybe that will be Airstream number 2.
I find living in a small space is a good challenge because you have to be very mindful and intentional about your possessions and the things you consume. You have to stop and pause before purchasing something to determine, do I really need this? And do we have room for it in this space? Is it going to bring joy to my life, or can I live without it? We found that although we're tempted to buy things, we're less likely to mindlessly purchase things, which financially is very beneficial.
We're also very much less likely just to bring home random things from the thrift store.
And from the street.
Yes. No more like, oh, that looks like a nice couch and that's a fancy dresser, I'm gonna restore that, and they just sit there until they get tossed out.
Although we did get these patio chairs from the street. That's a big mosquito.
That was like
Get on before he
smaller than
bites
the
you.
one that was on my head just a moment ago.
Wow.
The process of paring down and living more tiny has been a really incremental change over time, and it's been for me the process of moving from one place to another and not wanting to have to rent a moving truck. So as long as I can always fit everything into a car in one trip, I think I'm pretty happy.
I would say the same. Before this, I was living in small apartments and we lived together in tiny spaces. We did have to pare down considerably to be able to fit into this space.
There's also been a pretty big financial component involved in this transition. As a whole, the project ended up costing us about $25,000, but currently we only pay about a quarter of the average rent here in BC. So over the span of a 2-year period, the amount that we save from living in the Airstream is equal to the amount that we've spent on the Airstream. So after the 2 years, we're more or less coming out even. It's really allowed us to help to scale back our traditional work hours and spend more time doing things that we enjoy.
Yeah, without having the huge financial overhead, we were able to scale back our 9-to-5 working hours in our conventional jobs and take the risk of starting our own business. We're also able to spend more time adventuring outdoors, spend more time doing creative endeavors, and learning new skills and hobbies, such as building things. So it's really created a lot of financial freedom for us, and we've freed up a lot of our own time. It's really been an awesome journey. Thanks for watching this tour. If you have any questions about our build or our tiny home, you can pop them down in the comments. We'd love to chat with you there. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to give this one a thumbs up if you like it, and we will see you next week. For first-time builders, we're pretty... Oh my God, boy.
Oh. Sorry, like a wasp biting my temple.